I don't know what to say. They shot and killed my baby in front of me, and I want the biggest bail that you can get, so he can never step out that jail again. So I won't have to be worried that a car gonna ride up beside me and shoot me up. I'm scared for my life every car I get outside of. And I don't want to be scared. I don't want them to never get out. They took my baby's life in front of me. In front of me, I had to comfort my baby. I had to lift his head and see blood. I don't want them to never, ever in a day in their days walk out that jail again. They took my baby's life on you guys' courthouse building on all of our watch.
Sure, thank you. Commissioner, I do believe this is a case that probably calls for $1 million cash bail. I understand that's an extremely high amount. However, Mr. Cummins' actions here were extremely brazen, and frankly, he didn't appear to be at all afraid of the repercussions he'd face. I do suspect he would simply flee if released on any lower cash bail, unless he was able to somehow post $1 million in cash. He committed this crime outside of the building that he's being held in right now. The bullet holes are actually still in the side of that building that he's sitting in. He committed this crime on numerous surveillance cameras in broad daylight in front of a marked squad car from the City of Madison Police Department. He jumped out of a car on video. He was holding a 9mm that was converted into an automatic weapon, and brazenly executed a man who he knew was not able to defend himself in any way. Likely used public records to know when that person was being released, knowing obviously that person couldn't be armed, having just been released from the jail on low-level charges, and executed that man in front of his mother in broad daylight. Someone like that, I think, has no fear of the system, and frankly seemed to have no fear of getting caught. I suspect he would flee if given the opportunity. I understand the complaint here is very long, and I appreciate everyone reading it. And the length of the complaint probably, in some cases, would indicate a case that's going to rely on extreme circumstantial evidence. That's not the case here. The complaint is long because we're describing long bouts of video. The video at play here videotaped the actual crime, and then videotaped the car as it moved out of the area, and then was ultimately in a high-speed chase. Video includes that car being ditched and people exiting that vehicle. It's an extremely strong case, and I do believe this is a case that very possibly could result in a life without parole sentence. Given that possibility and the reckless disregard for everyone's safety in the downtown area and the blatant execution of this young man, I think it calls for $1 million cash bail.
As this court is well aware, bail is not a referendum on an individual. It is not an opportunity to sentence an individual, and it is not an opportunity to use a cash bail in order to protect the community. That is what the purpose of non-monetary conditions are for. The state is requesting a $1 million bail as a de facto pretrial detention order because they clearly know and understand that $1 million is out of the range of anybody, most people in this community, but particularly anybody who cannot afford to pay for their own lawyer, as Mr. Cummins is. I believe that the requested amount is just simply beyond the pale. Here you have somebody with whom cash bail is absolutely reasonable, and a substantial amount of cash bail is also reasonable. Mr. Cummins is facing first-degree intentional homicide. This is a case, as Mr. Brown pointed out, that comes punishable with a mandatory life sentence and possibly without chance of parole. We do also have fleeing conduct. So for all of those reasons, a significant amount of cash bail would be justified and reasonable. But a significant amount of cash bail in the amount of $100,000 or something close to that is exactly what we believe would be necessary to ensure Mr. Cummins' return to court. Notably, the PSA tool notes 0 failures to appear. Mr. Brown described Mr. Cummins as someone who was so brazen that he would never show up to court, and yet comes here today citing no examples of Mr. Cummins not showing up to court during his short history. He's a 20-year-old with 3 children and another kid on the way. He has a lot to lose, and he would understand that not coming to court would be a virtual guarantee that he would never be able to see those people in the future. For all of those reasons, we are asking the court to impose a substantial quantity of cash bail, but one that is much more reasonable and tied not to the goal of locking someone up prematurely while they remain presumed innocent, but with the goal of absolutely ensuring their appearance if they were ultimately to be able to come up with that money and secure their release. And in anticipation of the question that I think I'm going to get shortly after this, Mr. Cummins is not going to be waiving time, so we are requesting a timely preliminary hearing on this case.
Okay, thank you. And I should offer the state any rebuttal argument you'd like to have.
Sure. I'll note that Mr. Cummins, while we don't note any failures to appear at court here recently, I'm not sure what records are available here for the assessor to look into Illinois. Mr. Cummins is not someone who has a considerable record here in the state of Wisconsin. His only real record with the police is he showed up at one of our hospitals, I believe, with a gunshot wound last summer, and that's about it. He does have a criminal record out of Illinois. As far as I'm aware, he's actually out on bond on multiple felonies out of Cook County at this point. I don't even know what they are. So to the extent we're looking at his performance on bail, I can't tell you if he failed to appear, but it does appear that while out on bond in the state of Illinois, he decided to execute someone in front of our police station, which I think shows someone who doesn't care at all about bail. So yes, I will concede, though, he has not failed to appear for court here in Dane County or in the state of Wisconsin.